Okay, Hillary, who is the king of rock and roll?
Elvis, easy.
Very good. All right, true or false? The king of rock and roll once said, truth is like the sun. You can shut it out for a time, but it ain't going away.
True.
Very good.
Okay, I have one for you.
All right.
True or false? This episode of the David and Hillary Show is entitled, How Do I Know What's True? Part 2.
Oh, that's definitely true.
All right, let's do this.
Well, Hillary, we're recording episode 4 here in Middle Tennessee in February of
Yes.
2025. And for anyone who's not familiar with the weather in Tennessee in February, it's a roller coaster.
Gross. We've had some pretty days.
I mean, a lot of the year can be like that. Summer's pretty just from July, August, September. It's usually just hot and humid. But so anyway, we've already had some 60s. I think we hit 70 once or twice in the last 30 days. And
Right.
And then the next few days, it's supposed to be in the 20s. So
Yeah. And maybe more snow.
and maybe more snow.
Right.
So, there's a saying, if you don't like the weather, just stick around 5 minutes. It'll change.
Yeah.
And I learned over the years with some of the different places that I lived that a lot of places have a saying like that, and they think it's unique to their location. But it's definitely true about Middle Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, but one of the things I love about this time of year is even though it's not really spring yet, we don't have daffodils blooming or anything like that yet, we do have hellebores.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was, I didn't look this up. I can't remember ever seeing these in Michigan. Do they have them there, or are
They can grow there.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where they're not completely uncommon. They're also not super cheap to buy. I mean, they're not crazy. They could be like $20 or $30 for one potted plant. It's a little more expensive than some other perennials, but it's kind of one of those, if you know, you know. A lot of people don't know about them,
Well,
but they can grow up to or as cold as zone 5.
Yeah. And years ago, one of our landscape customers gave us one.
Yeah.
And just said, "Here, throw this in the ground," which happens a lot, and that's how we've got a lot of our plants. Mm-hmm. And I just tucked it in on the side of the house, and what I noticed is that every winter it would bloom just when you thought everything was dead. Here's
Yeah.
this beautiful flower. And I kind of felt bad that it was tucked away. I kind of wanted more in a more prominent place. So last year, I think we just went a little hellebore crazy. And,
We did. This is what happens. We put some in for a customer. I was kind of like learning more about them and getting excited about hellebores are really cool. And then I was designing some work for a customer for landscaping, and I said, "Hey, let's put some hellebores out here. These are really cool. The leaves are evergreen, and then they bloom late summer, late winter, super early spring before almost anything else. And then they'll bloom for a while.
Yeah.
When it starts getting hot, they're like, yeah, we're not blooming anymore. But
the foliage is still beautiful.
But the foliage is evergreen year
Yeah,
round.
beautiful.
I think at the limits of its where it'll live in the cold, if it gets really, really cold, sometimes the foliage can get kind of brown and it doesn't look great. But then when it warms up, and even here in the little micro changes that we get, when it warms up, they kind of perk up and they're like, hey, look,
Yeah.
we're flowers and we're pretty and we're happy. And then when it gets, like down 30, 40, they kind of, or 30s or 20s, like it's going to be, they just kind of like, and you're like, oh no, the hellebores died. And then when it gets back to 40, 50 degrees and then you have a sunny day, then they're like, hey.
Happy again?
It's kind of fun to watch them.
Yeah.
I like that they come in lots of different colors.
Yes. Yep.
So you should be seeing some pictures, or we'll see where I put them in. Maybe you already saw them, but the hellebores, the different colors.
Yeah. And then unfortunately, we're going to show you also some less inspiring photos from our garden. These are entitled Winter Blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just took those. This is what a
the
lot
garden
of
looks
our
like.
rest of our garden looks like. Yeah.
And that's fine. We know there has to be a winter season, but it is not our favorite. And but the nice part is that soon And I think you're going to show some photos that have little signs of spring in them.
Close-ups of some of the daylilies that are already trying to poke their little heads up. I don't know what's going to happen to those over the next few days, but again, that happens every year. They'll kind of start to come up and get knocked back when it gets cold, and come back, and they always eventually come up and bloom. And so just even those kind of early beginnings of that makes me happy. I'm like, oh, we're getting close now. We got hellebores and we got stuff trying to come back.
Hope is blooming.
Hope springs eternal.
Springing eternal. Yeah. So I hope you enjoy those photos. We are going to have to get out and do some winter cleanup pretty soon.
We will, and we're going to try to document some of that.
Take you on a garden journey.
I'm just going to throw this in really quick. This wasn't in our notes, but we did add a couple movie reviews onto our channel. So we now have podcasts and movie reviews. And we told you in episode 1, we had a lot of plans for the podcast and really for the channel. And so we're hoping to add a gardening playlist. So we've got movie playlists, and we're going to try to add a gardening playlist and kind of just document our garden. It's just so fun every year to watch the different things bloom at the different times they come and they go, and we love it. We enjoy it. So hopefully you can get some joy out of that too.
So over the last couple episodes, we've been talking about discernment and the definitions of truth and a lie.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about how to discern between facts and subjective opinions. And as soon as you told me that we were going to talk about this, I thought about that clip. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Inside Out, but there is a scene where joy and sadness and bing bong, another fun word to say, bing bong.
Bing bong, bing bong.
They're on the train.
This is the first one from 2015.
Inside Out 1.
Yeah.
And joy bumps into the boxes, the crates. That one crate is containing the facts, and one crate has the opinions.
Yep.
She accidentally bumps into them. They all fall out, and Bing Bong just throws them all together in one crate. And he's like, don't worry, these get mixed up all the time.
Yeah, he throws them all into the box marked facts.
Facts, yeah.
As if all of the facts and all of the opinions are facts,
yeah.
Which they're clearly not. But it's hilarious. That whole movie is just
so good.
So good.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Well, in the last episode, we also talked about how Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And because he is the truth, if you study his teachings and study his life, that you can more easily recognize the truth. And we kind of tied that in with studying currency. If you study the real thing, if you study Jesus, the real truth, you can more easily spot a fake or a counterfeit or a lie. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to say also, if you're watching this and you haven't spent a lot of time in the Bible and you're not really sure where to go to find the the stories about the life of Jesus and his teachings where they're recorded, you're going to want to go to the Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are the first 4 books of the New Testament in the Bible. And if you pick up any copy of the Holy Bible, it should have an index in the beginning, so you can find Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. That's where you're going to find that.
Yeah, and they'll give you the page number. If you don't know where the books are, just look in the beginning, find that name, and then look at the page number.
And another thing that Jesus talked about was the Holy Spirit. So we're not going to do a real deep dive on this today, but the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And God the Son was Jesus when he came down to earth in human form to teach us about what God the Father expects from us, and also to die for our sins. So that's a super short version, but Jesus knew that he wasn't going to stay on the earth forever, and that he was going to go away, and that the disciples would probably kind of freak out about that and be like, well, what are we supposed to do now? And so he told them that when I'm going to leave, but I'm going to send somebody else. And so in John 14:15 through 17, it says, if you love me, you will obey what I command. And I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him or knows him, but you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. So I'm going to read one more, and then we'll talk about both of them. So just a page over in my Bible, John 16, verses 12, and really the first part of 13. Jesus said, I have much more to say to you, more than you can now bear. But when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he will guide you into all truth. And so what Jesus is saying is he was going to leave. And of course, this is 2,000 years later. So he is no longer walking the earth in human form, but he sent the Holy Spirit for us to have access to. And so you can pray and just ask the Holy Spirit of God to help you, because he is the Spirit of truth. And if you have access to the Spirit of truth, he can help you to distinguish between what is true and what is not true, what is a lie, what is a blatant lie, what is a near truth. He can help you with all of that. And it's not always easy, and it's not always just, it's not, I always say God is not like Disney magic. I think people a lot of times are looking for a quick formula, something easy. Oh, if I follow these steps, if I do this incantation, the spell will work.
Right.
That's not how Christianity works.
It is not witchcraft.
It's not.
Right. It's a relationship with a person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But I just want to let you know, if you never heard that before, that the Spirit of God is available to you to help you with truth.
And can I just say too that I am so grateful that God calls himself a counselor, and how great that when Jesus sent the Holy Spirit, now everybody everywhere, anytime can have instant access to him.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. It is. It's beyond really comprehension. And he wants to speak to us. He wants to have that relationship with us every day.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's right.
Well, let's talk about some other ways to tell what's true. First of all, I think consider the source, right?
Yeah.
When someone is speaking, you want to think about them and how much do you actually know about that person?
Right.
Do you know them at their job? Do you know if they do an honest job?
Yeah.
What are their credentials? What is some of the things that, I'll just say some of the most, I think when I was in real estate, they said that, some of the most untrustworthy professions were like lawyer, real estate agent, what are some of the, I know people don't trust them. And I, after having been a real estate agent, I know why some people don't trust them. Because some people are not honest in the way they do their jobs.
Right.
So again, consider the source. How trustworthy is the person that's speaking?
We talked in a previous episode about, part of being life smart is to understand that some people lie. And so you can't just take every single thing every single person says as absolute truth, because everybody's not honest. So there are different. So I guess here's where I want to go with this. The guy that tells his wife she looks a little bit better in the dress than she actually does
is smart.
But he's not just telling lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. I mean, sometimes it's easier to just be like, babe, you look good. You ready to go? Let's go. Let's get in the car. Okay, dinner's waiting. Let's go get some great food.
That could be an opinion.
Yeah,
in my opinion, you look wonderful.
Right. In my opinion, because I fear for my life, you look. No, I'm exaggerating, of course, but that's different from someone who just lies all the time. So, someone who lies as a part of their persona, like they're not at all who they say they are. Someone who lies as a basic part of their job. They lie on their resume. Mm-hmm. Their credentials are not what they say they are. These are people that you need to be concerned about. Someone who lies about a problem or a situation in order to get your business or your money. It's like, oh, you need a new roof. Well, maybe you do, but maybe you don't. Maybe don't just get one opinion. This guy just wants your money. He wants your insurance money or whatever. I can do this for insurance. All you got to do is pay the deduct. Hey, sometimes that's true and it works and that's great. But be careful, because we We had a guy come to our door not long ago who said, "Hey, we just replaced a roof down the road, and it looks to me like yours is about the same age." And we're like,
I asked him, I said, "Oh, how old do you think my roof is?" And then he said, "Oh, I don't know. Actually, I'm not really very good at that."
"Yeah,
I
well,
said, "Well, it's only 5 years old."
that's right. It's
So,
5 years old. It's fine. We're good.
and
Thank
I
you."
understand he needs to do his job, but just I would appreciate it if he didn't lie about it to try to get my
Yeah.
business.
Sometimes they'll say, "Do you mind if I go up on your roof and
And
check
check.
it out and see if you need a roof or not?" And even then, that get a couple of opinions. That's the way to go. But anyway, someone who lies about a problem or a situation to get your business or your money, to gain your trust for who knows what reason, but why are they gaining your trust through lies? Or, sometimes this happens with a boss or a government official or someone who's in a position of authority. They lie to you about what's really going on in order to get your obedience. They're trying to control your behavior. And so people who lie consistently or for personal gain, I mean, they can't be trusted. It's, if I can't trust you with those kinds of things, how do I know any of the other things you're saying are true? But most people don't lie every single thing that comes out of their mouth, but you just don't know. I mean, once I realize you're a liar, I don't know when I can or can't trust you. So
Yeah, probably very little.
So how to know the truth? Number one, consider the source.
Yep. Now there is a story in the Bible that you like
Oh,
that
yeah.
involves a lie.
That's right. Well, this threw me for such a long time, and I mean, I put a lot of thought into it and prayed and asked God to show me what's really going on here. And it is the story from the Old Testament, and you can find it in the book of Joshua, chapter 2. It's pretty much the whole chapter is the story, and it's the story of Rahab, the prostitute. And so the Israelites sent a couple spies into a foreign land to see, like, can we overtake this land or not? And while they were in there, they almost got caught. And this woman, Rahab, who was a prostitute, took them into her condo or whatever and hid them. And then when the soldiers came around and said, "We heard there are spies in the area. Have you seen them?" She's like, "Oh, I think I saw two men running off that way, going toward that road." Yeah. And then they left and pursued down that road. And then she's like, "All right, cool, guys, come on out." I sent them off the other way. So anyway, she helps the spies to live. They go back and say, "Yeah, we can take this land." And when they conquer this land, they make sure that Rahab gets saved and in thanks for her helping them. Okay. Well, I grew up in a kind of a, like, these are the 10 commandments and these are the rules and these are the laws and don't ever break any of them for any reason. And sometimes, you would hear somebody in school say, "Well, what about, here's a moral dilemma." And I've heard people say before, there are no such things as moral dilemmas. The laws and rules are super clear. Follow them, always do the right thing, and you don't have to worry about it. Okay. So in James 2:25 in the New Testament, they're thinking Hebrews 11 is the Hall of Heroes, and Rahab is mentioned there as kind of a hero of old. And then in James 2:25, it says that Rahab was considered righteous for what she did. So think about it. What did she do? She lied. And so that troubled me for a long time. The soldiers came and said, "Have you seen these guys? Do you know where they are?" And she lied, and she said they went that way, when they were actually hiding in her condo. And I just like saying condo. I don't think they had condos back then. But so eventually the Lord helped me to see, well, okay, so if you want to go super legalistic, did she lie? Yes, she lied. Why was it credited to her as righteousness that she lied? Well, what did she actually do? Let's pull back. I like the phrase, let's take the 30,000 foot view. So if you've ever been in an airplane and you look down, everything looks completely different and you can kind of see the big picture. That's what we're talking about. So what's the big picture? What did Rahab really do? Rahab aligned herself with the one true God. Because if you read the story in Joshua 2, she knew you guys are with the group that worships the true God, the one true God. And I want to align with you guys because I know that you're going to win in the end. And I want to be on that side. She was wise and she aligned herself with God and his people. And so this podcast is not ways to tell a lie and not be sinning, but
I mean, it might be now.
but I just think it's important to note that God is not quite as legalistic as some people say he is.
And again, it's not a formula.
And it's not a formula, but what did she really do? Was the whole point of the story of Rahab that she told a lie? No, the whole point of the story of Rahab is that she aligned herself with the one true God and his people.
That's right. That's right. Another thought I think that we've always kind of lived with, and hopefully we tried to pass on to our family, was to not be afraid of the truth. You know, sometimes when we would be raising our kids, they would bring really different ideas home. Yep. And, you know, we were hopefully
public school.
And we would just say, well, let's talk about that. Let's think about that. Let's discuss it. One time at dinner, we had our kids here and a friend who was visiting. And one of our kids was really wanting to talk about the idea of a flat earth. Well, I've always been taught that it was round. That makes the most sense to me. But I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Let's talk about it. And we probably spent 20, 30 minutes really hearing out the ideas and the thoughts and just trying to think, well, I wonder if that could be true. Why? And, you know, my thought always is, well, does it matter? Does it matter, you know, in that instance, does it matter if it's round or flat? Like, why would they lie? Why would that be an important thing? And, you know, we talked about it. And the friend that was here was just wide-eyed, jaw on the floor. He said, we would never have talked about this that long at our house. Our parents would have just shut that down and said, no, it's round, move on. And I think we all kind of came back to I think we're still round earth people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a part of me that was like, are we really talking about this? But I thought it was valuable to treat our child's opinion and his search for the truth as a valid, you know, like you have to wrestle with these things. And if I just shut you down, you're going to resent it. And you know, so let's talk about it.
I think you need to remember the truth can handle some scrutiny.
Yeah.
The truth isn't afraid of that. Be willing to do some research and to discuss. Don't just shut things down because they make you uncomfortable. Be willing to discuss and don't be afraid.
Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? You find out the truth isn't what you think it is and you don't like it. And I think it's better to know a truth that you don't like than to believe a lie that you do like.
Yep. Like your nativity.
That's right. Yeah. In the last episode, we talked about finding out that Jesus was probably not born in a wooden barn. He was probably born in a cave. And if you saw that episode, I have a picture of the nativity scene that I brought back from Israel that's made out of a piece of olive wood that is shaped more like a cave. And we were just reading last night in a completely different book how they were kind of verifying that Jesus was almost certainly born in a cave.
Right.
And so, you know, I was like,
that was cool. I love that book.
I didn't love the first time I heard that. I didn't like it. If you didn't see our last episode, I didn't like it at all. But then I did the research and it's like, oh, well, I want to align myself with the truth, not with the paradigm that I once held, which I now know is untrue. So,
and speaking of verifying, I have a story from preschool, one of my absolute favorite stories, because I truly, truly adored this child. He was a little bit naughty. Why were my favorites always the naughty ones? I don't know. They give you a run for the money. I just love it. So I'm sitting at lunch with a group of preschoolers one day, and this little guy that I adored started bragging to the table. The kids got into some conversation about spanking and whether they got spanked at home or not, or, the kids, I love preschool conversations. And this little guy at the end of the table sitting opposite of me, we were both at the long end. He says to the whole table, "I've never been spanked." And they were amazed.
Yeah.
I was doubly amazed because I'm thinking, buddy, I know how many times you've been in my think about it chair, and I know your parents. I bet you've been spanked.
Yeah.
But he was not going to let go of that. And again, we were talking about, if you're somebody who is worried, is this the truth? Is this a lie? Do your research, verify. And I kept thinking, does he not realize how easily I can verify this story?
Yep.
So easily. So, and I was pretty confident this was a lie. So actually, my first response was to give him an out. And I said, hey, bud, don't you think that like maybe one time, maybe at some point you probably got spanked? I thought, easy out, right? All he has to do is come clean and just say, oh, yeah, maybe once, No, he doubled down. Nope, I've never been spanked. And I said, I know your mom and dad, and I'm pretty sure that probably one time you got spanked. I thought maybe that'll trigger something. He'll think, oh, yeah, she knows my mom. She could ask her.
Yeah.
Nope. He tripled down. Nope, never been spanked. And now I'm getting kind of mad. And I said, hey, buddy, come here. And he got up and he walked. He came over to my chair. And so we are just face to face right here.
Yep.
And I said, today, when your mom comes to pick you up, I could just ask her and to say, hey, today at lunch, your son said that he'd never been spanked. And I was just wondering if that was the truth or if that was a lie. And he looked me dead in the eyes. Now he's scared.
Yeah.
It's dawning on him. He looked at me. He says, oh, I wish you wouldn't. So he still didn't confess. Mom verified, yeah, he's been spanked.
Right.
But,
I love that story.
Verify the story, but also keep that in mind. Don't be a liar. Be truthful. Just make it a part of your life to always be truthful, because, and I don't know if you always heard this statement growing up. Do you ever hear anybody say, be sure your sins will find you out?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like such an old churchy thing to say. And I've heard that over and over, but I didn't know where that was from.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up. It is in the Bible. It is a real thing. So this is a story, excuse me, in Numbers 32. So the tribes of Israel are getting ready to go into the promised land, and probably right around the same time that Rahab's story is taking place, because they went in to go check out Jericho.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And so two of the tribes, the Reubenites and the Gadites, they want to settle east of the Jordan. They don't want to go over. And so they're talking to Moses about this, and he's like, okay, you can settle here, but you have to go and fight with the other tribes first. Go in and he says, go over and fight with the other tribes, and then when they're all settled, you can go back. But if you fail to do this, you will be sinning against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will find you out.
Yep.
So that was a pretty serious time, a serious action. But I do think it's true. Like, whether anybody here ever finds out that you are lying, the Lord knows.
Yeah.
Not to be scary or weird about it, but just even when no one's watching, just tell the truth.
Yeah.
So the Lord does know.
That's right.
And lies make your heart feel sick. So it's not good for you.
Right.
It's not good for you to tell a lie.
Right.
So.
Theologian and philosopher St. Augustine said, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Let it loose. It will defend itself. I really like that quote. And one last thing I would just like to say, don't be afraid to look for look at alternative ideas, because the truth, like cream, will eventually always rise to the top.
Yeah.
So, it's okay. You'll figure it out. So yeah, number 3, verify the story. So
Ask the mom.
Yeah, ask the mom.
What if you can't ask their mom?
Yeah. Well, so, all right. So an example would be statements are being made about a public person and maybe you want them to be true because it's something good about somebody you like, or maybe it's something bad about somebody you don't like, or maybe it's the opposite and you don't want it to be true, but you're not sure either way. Maybe someone's making statements and someone else is challenging them. So what do? How do you know what to think there? And so one thing you can do is think, well, does this trace back to a public speech that's been made or an event that might be on YouTube? Because, I mean, we're on YouTube. If we're on YouTube, everything's on YouTube. So my advice would be try to find the full-length, original, unedited video and find out for yourself what was or wasn't said. I had that happen once a couple years ago. There was something that was said about a public figure, and I said, I don't know, that doesn't sound right. But it was referencing a speech that was given that I hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. And the speech was 70 minutes long. So it's an hour plus of my life that I wasn't going to get back. But I watched the entire speech.
Right.
I mean, start to finish. It was the unedited clip, and that person never said what their political enemies were saying that they said. So,
but you were willing to believe it.
I was,
if it was true.
Yeah. I mean, but I wanted to know I just wanted to know the truth.
Right.
Like what was actually said.
Yep.
And
so go to the source.
Go to the source. Go to the source. Another way, if there's not a recorded video that you can watch, does this person have a website or a verified social media account that you can go to? And sometimes people will address things there. I mean, people are saying this about me. Here's the truth. And they'll make a statement of some kind. And if it comes directly from them, now, sometimes people lie, but at least if you hear their words, them saying it, mm-hmm. then you at least know their side of it. So those are a couple ways to verify. Do you want to take this next part?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say when you were saying that, it made me think about AI, and now it's actually going to even be harder now that they can manipulate videos and make people say things they never said. It's going to be harder.
It is much. We live in a time that's much harder to discern the truth. So we fully admit that, but that's why we're trying to give you some ideas of things you can do to try to.
Yes.
But it is sometimes very difficult.
Right. Well, another thing that happens nowadays, you hear this term all the time. We thought it would be a good idea to define it, but gaslighting. I think everybody has heard that term, but not everybody probably has had it defined. So again, back to the handy dandy, trusty 1963 dictionary.
Can I pause you just for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was really.
I know you're
really going for it. Okay.
I almost tackled you there. Sorry.
It's okay.
Well,
I'm going to walk it off.
I just wanted to throw in one more thing about going to the original source.
Okay.
Also, sometimes statements are made about a source material, not a person. That sounds false. Right. So you get a copy of the original source material. So, for instance, like when we're preparing for this podcast, we use a lot of Bible verses. And sometimes I'll look it up on Google. I'll say, where is da, 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 because I remember the story or one of the phrases or whatever, but I don't have that mind that is great at just memorizing and cataloging volumes of information. So I know it's in there. But where is it? It'll tell me, but I don't just write that down and say it on the podcast without verifying it. I'll go back and get my physical Bible.
Yep.
And okay, well, that said it was in John 14. So I'll find it and read it. And then I'll usually also read some verses around there for context to make sure that I'm not using something in a way that it was not originally intended to be used. Right. So I think just the integrity of that is really important. But if someone's saying, this document says this, that document says that, this is, you can, a lot of times you can look it up. And if you have to, you can go to the library and get a copy of it, or if you go online and you get 3 different sources, usually you can kind of verify, because again, people can lie, they can change things, but try to get the original source material and check that.
Yes.
And now I apologize for the interruption, and I'm going to set you back up and help you get running full speed again.
All right.
Go for it.
Back to the handy dandy 1963 dictionary. I have a theory that there was not a lot of gaslighting going on in the 60s, or at least they didn't call it this, because here is the definition. Number 1, the light made by burning gas. Number 2,
That's a gaslight.
a gaslight, a fixture, especially a lamp, which burns gas. So, yeah, that is not what people mean today by gaslighting. Why don't you help us with a more modern version?
Well, I love the older dictionary, but if you have terms that were not in use, like you said, at that time, we have to go more modern. So I also looked it up on dictionary.com, which says gaslighting, the use of psychological manipulation to undermine a person's faith in their own judgment, memory, or sanity. That's diabolical.
It is. That's a good word.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Definition number 2, the practice of deceiving people through the repetition of a constructed false narrative. So really, basically what gaslighting is you make up a lie and tell it as if it's a truth in such a way that you denigrate anyone who doesn't believe you.
Right.
Crazy.
Well, and actually, that made me think about one of the movies that we watched. Check off your bingo card if you'd like, children. So, Brave the Dark,
Yep.
Nate's grandparents, they did not want the real story of their daughter's death getting out.
Yep.
And so they told people that she was in a car accident, total lie.
Right.
And he was so young, he kept trying to tell the truth.
When their grandson.
The other grandson tried to tell the truth about it, and they would say, "Oh no, he's lying. She was in a car accident. You remember, she was in a car accident." Well, that's
Gaslighting.
total gaslighting.
Yeah.
Telling a lie and trying to make someone feel like they're crazy.
Yep.
And he stopped talking because he had nothing to say. He's like, every time I try to tell the truth,
Yeah.
somebody tells me I'm telling a lie, so I'm done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You wonder why he was messed up.
Right.
We'll circle back to that movie at the end of the podcast. But another example is when all the major news outlets are saying almost the exact same thing at the same time. You can go, well, wait, David, I mean, if something happens, they're all going to be talking about it. Right. Okay, here's what I mean. They're using the same keywords or phrases. Like if you hear it on one network and then you hear it on another, and it's like they're reading from the same script almost. Well, how does that happen? Because, and well, I'm not going to go, this is not what this podcast is about, but it's one of my pet peeves. Journalism used to be everyone went to cover a story and they all would do their own reporting, and they all would have their own words that they would use and phrases they would use, and they would all talk about it in their own way because it was supposed to be objective, truthful reporting. Nowadays, it's really common where you hear almost the same exact report, or for sure they're using keywords, buzzwords, if you will, that talking points that there's almost no way that doesn't come from a central source who says, when you talk about this, say this.
Well, just mathematically, what are the chances that every single reporter saw that event and then happened to write the same exact phrase for that event? That's
like zero.
Yeah. I mean, I took statistics. I can't say it, but I took it. And that would be incredible. Incredible that would happen over and over. It's amazing. We all just keep thinking of the same phrase where it's like we're locked in. We're just locked in.
Yeah. So at the very least, that's not independent, objective
Exactly.
reporting.
Exactly.
It is almost certainly gaslighting, where a specific false narrative put out by a central source is trying to control what people think about a certain issue. And so if you ever notice that happening, and if it's an issue that you care about, like I really want to know the truth, then further research is required. Like we talked about earlier, try to go to the original source. Can you watch the video? Can you check it out at a deeper level.
Yeah.
So sometimes gaslighters not only create a false narrative, they accuse others of something they themselves are guilty of. When I was, a few years back, when gaslighting started making its way into the lexicon, if you will, I didn't really know what it meant. And I thought it meant when you, excuse me, gaslighting is when you accuse someone of something that you yourself are doing. And that's not the exact definition. As I mentioned earlier, you're trying to deceive someone by repeatedly using a false narrative. But in a February 2017 article of Psychology Today, PhD Stephanie A. Sarkis.
Sorry, Steph.
I'm obviously trying to read this right off the page. But here's what Dr. Stephanie said. Gaslighters often accuse others of harmful actions, even when there is direct evidence they are engaging in the same behavior. End quote. And I've seen politicians do that very thing, where they know if people realize what they were really doing, they would hate it. And so they're not sure they can completely cover up that it's happening. And so they actually accuse their political opponent of the thing that they're doing. And they say, isn't this other person such a terrible person? They're doing this. They're trying to use these kind of techniques, blah, 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 which is exactly what they're doing. And if gaslighting. So just be aware that it's happening. It is sometimes hard to know who's telling the truth, but it's out there. Excuse me. And it's worth trying to know the truth, I believe.
There's a quote from William Shenstone, an English poet. He says, "A liar begins with making falsehood appear like truth and ends with making truth appear like falsehood."
Yeah. Well, one last thing. I've almost said this 5 times, but I knew it was in the notes toward the end. But sometimes you don't have to know what's true. I mean, sometimes you really do need to know what's going on. Sometimes you don't have to know what's true. And one example that I think is pretty obvious is celebrity gossip. I don't really understand why some people get caught up in that. I'm not judging you if you do, but that this actress and her actress husband are probably going to get a divorce, and somebody was sleeping with somebody else, and can you believe, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, don't get caught up devouring that. I feel bad for anyone who's got a crazy mixed up life and bad things are happening. I care. And if you care that much, you can pray for them. That's a good idea, but you don't need to know. You really don't. It's just like, let it go.
It's really not our business.
Use your time for something more beneficial. I mean, you don't have to know the truth about every single thing in the world. But if an issue affects you, your family, your community, your nation in a way that's important to you, then be willing to do a little research to try to find out, and don't be afraid of the truth. Just search for it and see what you find.
Yep.
And like the movie clip from Inside Out, facts, well, that's what leads me to say this, which is true. Facts are not opinions, and opinions are not facts. And once you know what's true, be honest about which is what. We live in a time where you can't take everyone's word for what they say, just because they have a microphone to yell into or a soapbox to stand on. And I realize that's kind of what we're doing on our podcast. Yeah. And so we take that responsibility seriously, and we just want you to know we're always gonna tell the truth.
Well, and I'm sure you've noticed that we've used quite a few Bible references in these first few episodes. That's a huge part of who we are. Yep. And it's because we feel like we have what is called a biblical worldview, a biblical Christian worldview.
And what is that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. And that's what we're going to talk about in episode 5. What does that mean, and why do we have it? I don't know if we'll get to both those questions, but
that's where we're going.
That's where we're going. It is something that it's very important to us. We'd love for you to know about it.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying these episodes, we'd love for you to hit the like button, to subscribe to our channel, to share it with somebody
hit this button
else.
right here to subscribe also.
And between now and then, you could also check out our movie review for Brave the Dark, right?
Yeah, we talked about that movie a couple times in this episode. We really liked it, and but we have a movie review that you can click on this right here, and you can check that out. We're trying to grow the channel and do fun things. So
yeah, and leave a comment if there's something that you'd like for us to talk about.
I mean, you probably know how this works, but if you can like this video, if you can share it with someone else that you think might like it, if you can subscribe to our channel, all those things help the algorithm and help us be able to bring you more content. So we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, and check out the movies. We'll be back in a week on episode 5 to talk about biblical Christian worldview.
And that's the truth.
That's the truth. Until then, we're David and Hillary. Thanks for joining us.